What is up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian Cologne, host of City of Wrestling Showtime. In this episode, I will be reviewing the January 17th episode of AEW Dynamite, as well as discussing the Andrade to WWE news, TNA Impact show tomorrow night, and this Saturday's MLW Reloaded. It's a 2-hour show, should be very good. I'm looking forward to it, as well as some news as far as someone backstage in AEW tonight. Gonna be interesting, but man, let's get into this show. Man, I love this show. It was fun. It was entertaining. The first match, Christian Cage, Dustin Rhodes, man, they did a terrific job. I did feel in the beginning, it did cross my mind. I was like, man, you know what? This match fits more Rampage, but in the last like 2-3 minutes, I'm like, you know what? This is actually a pretty dope match. I really enjoyed it. Dustin Rhodes, Christian Cage never cease to amaze me as far as what they're doing in the ring with so many years in the professional wrestling, man. I love it. Dustin Rhodes, man, he is a treasure. Man, he never disappoints, man, and he just gives it his all. Just the amount of times that he's done the Canadian Destroyer in the last like 2 years is just astonishing. But man, that was a fun match. But man, I got to get into what most people are probably talking about or going to talk about. They're going to dissect this whole interview and the things that the Young Bucks said, and just, are they referring to Punk? Are they referring to this? Are they referring to that? They just a very, for me personally, I love this interview with the Young Bucks with Renee Paquette. Man, if they want to project that they are heels, they're obnoxious, annoying, but like this isn't the heel Young Bucks we're used to that kind of have like that Bullet Club type vibe. This is something different. Me personally, it feels like they took a page out of the early stages of the Mr. McMahon character from 1997 after Survivor Series. And it just looks like they're adding a little bit of elements from there, and just it's like, okay, we're gonna go into this Sting Darby match. It's just the most obnoxious heels, and then from there, just build on there, which is pretty interesting because no matter the outcome of the Revolution match, whether Sting wins or the Young Bucks win, we could potentially be seeing a Young Bucks Darby Allin type feud after Revolution, which is very intriguing when you think about it, because I don't recall Sting and Darby interacting with the Young Bucks as much. Maybe if you go back to the first Forbidden Door, because I know Sting was with Shingo Takagi. Actually, yeah, that's the last time. Now that I think, yeah, that is the last time. So that's a very intriguing. But man, let's get into what they discussed right off the bat. Renee Paquette, she's like, "Oh, I'm Mad Nick Jackson," and they're like, "No, call us by our real names, Matthew and Nicholas." So right away, just by that, they set the tone. Like, okay, this isn't the Young Bucks that we're used to since AEW's inception and going back to Ring of Honor and New Japan. This is a different Young Bucks. Like, when I saw that, I was like, ooh, okay, this is gonna be good. This is okay. Let's see where they go with this. They mentioned that we are EVPs and it's about time to take this serious. They go over, would we do all this all over again? Would we start the company? Would we go through all the attacks and, oh, we're just thinking about ourselves and, the fights and just, dealing with these people and this, like they go into, detail. Please watch this interview because this was some good stuff. And they're like, we would do it all over again because we created a sustainable alternative company in professional wrestling. They mentioned that the model for AEW when it started was to change the world, and they're like, we stuck to that, but then it just seemed like as of late we've shifted from that. We've leaned on the superstars of yesterday, the cancerous, self-serving, superficial superstars, and it's like, ooh, and it's like, are they referring to someone that is in WWE now that was there for 4 or 5 months ago? Like, are they referring to someone else? Like, who are they referring to? For me, I don't care who they're referring to. I know for a fact just from how they've done storylines in the past, whether it's with AEW, Ring of Honor, and everything, they like to take a lot of stuff that the fans are tweeting about, talking about on social media, and just outside of just talking about, and they like to incorporate those little nods to what's being discussed in their storyline and in their character. So I'm like, okay, it's pretty good. They mentioned that Sting represents, um, professional wrestling. He's been a great representative, but he's the last of a dying breed, and we're gonna have to say goodbye to Sting, and everyone else likes Sting. I like this. This interview reminded me of when Mr. McMahon, Vince McMahon, was being interviewed by Jim Ross, and he mentioned Brett screwed Brett. It almost had those same vibes. It's like, are the Young Bucks taking a page out of Mr. McMahon's early days, his character, and incorporating it in um, their characters now heading into this AEW Revolution show? Again, whether the outcome is Sting and Darby win or the Young Bucks win, somehow we're getting a Young Bucks Darby feud after this. It's really intriguing to see who will be Darby's partner afterwards. Really interesting. Unfortunately, because of everything that happened at All in London, um, the logical partner for Darby to feud against these guys would be CM Punk, but that is not going to happen. In another world or alternate universe, that would be dope. But man, this was a great promo. It set up so many things. It set up the Young Bucks heading into Revolution, but it also set up the Young Bucks after Revolution. That this is who they're going to be. Kenny Omega's not there, so how's this affect Kenny Omega? When he returns and just how they're operating. Is Kenny Omega going to side with him? That whole thing. Um, you know, Leaning on yesterday's cancer's self-serving, superficial superstars. Are they going to, is this implying that most of the AEW wrestlers that are in the Sting category, you could put Jericho. I'm trying to think of any other wrestler like that on the men's side that's in that realm. Is it setting up for that? This is really interesting that they're going this route because it sets up so many things, and it opens the door for other talent to be like, hey, to be that counter to what AEW or not AEW, what the Young Bucks are talking about. It's like, okay, you guys want to start talking, acting like EVPs. So it opens the door for the opposite side. Like, oh, so you guys want to act like EVPs now, but what about this? You see what I'm saying? So it just opens up that back and forth banter that should be really interesting going into Revolution, then afterwards, which makes a lot of sense because after Revolution, they're going to be competing with, the road to WrestleMania. And I don't know if they've announced if they're going to have Collision air the same night as WrestleMania, which I don't know why they would do that because you're arguably going to get a big main event night one and, of course, night two. So I don't know why they would do that, but there hasn't been any word if they're going to run Collision that Saturday. Um, I don't know why they would do that. I don't know. I hope they don't do it because that doesn't make sense. Unless they want to do, was it WrestleMania 4 with the Crockett's and Vince and Air Clash of Champions against. If they want to do that, fine. But man, that's gonna be an uphill battle. But man, this Young Bucks interview with Renee Paquette, I recommend you guys watch it. There's so much more. Go back and watch it, and then watch it again because they're setting up so much for like Revolution and going on. Then we got the Deonna Purrazzo Renee Paquette, Toni Storm interaction after a match with Anna Jay, which she defeated Anna Jay. Um, I'm not even gonna do it justice. Timeless Toni Storm is a freaking hilarious character. Um, you know her being at commentary, and she looks at Ian Riccaboni, who's filling in for Tony Schiavone. She's like, "Oh my God, Tony Schiavone is clean shaven. Oh my God, he looks so good." And it's like, it's not Tony Schiavone, that's Ian Riccaboni. So I mean, go and watch that. That was fun. That interaction was fun, and I really like what they're doing with Deonna Purrazzo. You know, she's coming from TNA Wrestling, where she's been a multiple time Knockouts champion, the Knockouts Tag Team champion. She's main evented several of their shows or their pay per views and everything. So they're bringing her in like a major player. And again, I got to shout out Lyric of Wrestling. She brought this up in a tweet, and this makes a lot of sense. That if you notice, AEW in the last, I want to say 4 or 5 months, they've been mentioning a lot about Stardom. So it's almost as if storyline wise, they're setting the stage for eventually having some form of crossover with Stardom, which makes a lot of sense because you have a lot of wrestlers who wrestled there and so on. So it could be setting the ground for a potential Stardom. I don't want to say invasion, but just wrestlers from Starter coming to AEW, which would be very fantastic. But she mentions, we used to be like sisters. You've changed. So have I. You might be friends with Deonna, but you weren't friends with the Virtuosa, the best wrestler there. Toni Storm. She gets on the commentator's booth, and she's like, "What are you?" She looks at Luther, and he's like, "Oh." So she had her gown on, and he puts her on her shoulders, and she starts walking around, and she throws the shoe. That was fun, but the camera work like was kind of slow. They were slack, like it was late. Like it was just real awkward and everything. But they did get the nice interaction of Deonna Purrazzo throwing a shoe at Mariah May and that whole thing. So it's interesting to see who's going to help Deonna Purrazzo, because it's a numbers game. So you got Toni Storm, Mariah May, and Luther. Again, could we see the potential return of a Britt Baker, who is very good friends with Deonna Purrazzo? That would be really cool. But yeah, it looks like we're setting up Deonna Purrazzo facing Toni Storm at Revolution. That would be fun. And also, I wouldn't mind if Deonna Purrazzo upset Toni Storm. That would really create Toni Storm's unhingedness even more, um, so to speak. But I would love that, because she's already unhinged in a hilarious way. Her losing the title would be even hilarious with Mariah May and Luther. Like, it's just so entertaining. So you had that. Then also, that's very big. You had Anthony Bowens help Bullet Club Gold win the ROH Tag Team titles from Gates of Agony and Brian Cage. And as soon as that happened, and I'm like, oh wow, you have the trios champions and the 6-man tag, and like, are we setting this up for a unification match? I wouldn't mind that. I hope that happens. I actually do hope that, man, I don't know which title I wouldn't mind and like, moving on from. Man, I would honestly like if, because the 6-man titles in Ring of Honor have history. I actually wouldn't mind if they got rid of the AEW Trios title and kept the ROH 6-man tag title. I would like that, because there's more history there. And the Trios titles are just, it's like, okay, they've been here and there, but I would like it, just add a little prestige. It has history. So yeah, you had Anthony Bowens helping Bullet Club Gold defeat Gates of Agony. So, you have the Guns, and also shout out to the Gun Club. They introduced their new song. Sounds really bad. Like, that's a dope song. It fits them. It fits their vibe. It's better than that other entrance they had that was just like it was cool at first, but then it's just like, yeah, it don't fit their vibe no more. Like, you need something more up tempo and everything. And shout out to Mikey Ruckus for the latest entrance song for the the Guns. Really cool. So again, Anthony Bowens helps them. You have this stare down. I was like, okay. So again, could we see a potential unification match between the Gun Club and the Acclaimed? We shall see. Maybe it might be at Revolution. Something to think about, folks. Last but not least with the show, you had Hook versus Samoa Joe. This was a fun match. Man, this was, man, it wasn't to the level of the Undertaker Jeff Hardy ladder match from 2002 that really elevated Jeff Hardy to the main event level in 2002. Unfortunately, he wound up leaving WWE and went to TNA within a year. But this was up there. Man, Samoa Joe, man, he laid in some licks on, man. Oh my God, he laid into freaking Hook, man. The what do they call it? The Urange, like the spinning, like he drove him through the table, and Samoa Joe's looking. I was like, man, I told you, and Hook just flicks him off. It's like, whoa, like this really showcased Hook as like no nonsense. You can tell this match had an ECW feel. Like it had that type of feel, and it was like, okay, there's some elements of ECW, especially when Tommy Dreamer was getting beat down in ECW, and they would build him up against Raven or what have you, or Shane Douglas. Like you could see some of those elements in this match, and I'm like, okay, I really like this. But man, this was a fun match. The kickouts from Hook, man, there was points where you just thought, okay, he's gonna, that's it, that's the match. 1, 2, he kicked out a 1, and he just kept fighting, man, and eventually he got some offense in. But man, they have something really special with Hook, man. He just got something. I would say Hook's charisma and appeal with the fans is right up there with Darby Allin. Like that's it. You got Orange Cassidy, Darby Allin, and I gotta say you gotta put Hook right up there. He's got some, man. I would like to see them to add more to his repertoire as a wrestler, but man, after today's match with Samoa Joe, man, this was a fun match. He kept on coming, and of course, he did not tap out and he did not get pinned. He just passed out, which I like when AEW does that because it leaves the door open for future rematches and for that wrestler who passed out to actually get their comeuppance. Like, okay, I didn't get pinned and I didn't tap out. I passed out. So technically, you didn't beat me. I just passed out. I couldn't do anything. So I really like that because then, like I said, it sets up for another rematch, and then it's like, okay, it's all on the line now. After the match, you had Samoa or Hook keep coming up. He's like, come on, I ain't done. Samoa Joe went in there, gave him another muscle buster. Then Hangman Page comes out. Then you got Swerve in the crowd, and that's how the show ended, which I loved it. It's interesting because you had this main event match that was hyped up with Samoa Joe and Hook, and you end with the crowd chanting whose house, Swerve's house. You got Hangman Page helping Hook up and raising his hand. Like there's so many good things in this match that set up. It's like, okay, what's next for Hook? This was a star-making performance from Hook and just elevating them. Samoa Joe, Swerve, and Hangman. Okay, this got to be a triple threat at Revolution. This should be fun. Man, I loved it. I love this part. I'm looking forward to Rampage, which they announced is going to be Darby versus Jeff Hardy. Should be interesting because the Hardys have been teasing, or I shouldn't say they've been teasing. They've been showing signs of, being very heelish and just like, yeah, we're the vets and, you're ignoring us and you're not going to ignore us now, which I hope that leads to Broken Matt and Brother Nero, because that would be so fun right now in AEW. But other than that, the other things that stood out, of course, you had the Undisputed Kingdom confront Orange Cassidy and Trent. Like I said, Roderick Strong, said wait till March 3rd at Revolution. The next 6 weeks, you got to get used to knowing that you're keeping my title warm for me. I hope Roderick Strong wins, because Orange Cassidy needs to move on from the International Championship and just go in a different route. Chris Jericho and Matt Sydal had a interaction. Um, Basically, the opening video package was dope with Hook and Samoa Joe walking into the arena. Like, they really set up the big fight feel for this main event between Hook and Samoa Joe. I liked it. I gave this rating for AEW Dynamite solid and good. And I would have to say the most touching moment of AEW Dynamite, and I do have to mention that this is the 1 year anniversary of Jay Briscoe passing away, and Mark Briscoe, they gave him, man, this was really good. They gave him time, they gave him the mic, he spoke from the heart, and he mentions how, his nieces, the doctor said, like, man, she's more than likely not going to be able to walk, and he just says, you know, but, and he's like, but, and he mentions God is on the throne, and his nieces walk out. That was a touching moment. Myself, like, I was tearing up and crying. I seen people online like, man, this just got me in tears. And that was a very touching moment. And that was a very, man, it was just a touching way to honor the memory of Jay Briscoe, and just knowing that something that, was just very heart wrenching, and just, tragic circumstances, that there was something, good that came out of this. And man, blessings to the Briscoe family, man. That made the night, man. That really hit home, and it was just like, oh man, this is okay. This is cool. This is wow. This everything good. Like, this was just good, and hopefully those who were watching, it touched them as well, and just something that's, wow, this is so touching, man. And this was, again, this whole episode of Dynamite. This was a very good episode, and man, give AEW credit, man. They have been putting some very cohesive and just logical stories in their show. Is it great? No, but this is a complete 180 from what the hell we were experiencing like a year ago, where it was just like certain stories had cohesiveness, and then it was just like, okay, this is just like, it was just fragmented, and now it just seems like the whole show, there is a cohesiveness, that there's a flow, it makes sense, and it's leading to, okay, Rampage, and then it's like, okay, we're getting to Collision. Collision does seem a little bit like the old Dynamites, that kind of fragmented in a way. Not to the extent of the old Dynamites, but just a little bit things like, but overall, I love it. In other news, wrestling news outside of AEW Dynamite, it was reported by Fightful Select that Camille, yes, the free agent Camille from NWA, that many reports have been saying that, WWE has high interest in her. Of course, mentioning that, they probably send her to NXT. It was reported that she was backstage at AEW Dynamite. Fightful Select reported that, she was visiting friends, and they haven't confirmed whether she signed a deal as of yet. So that's very interesting, because adding her to that already stacked AEW Women's Division, ooh, that is some good stuff right there. Also, keep in mind, folks, because with everything that's happening with the AEW Women's Division, of course, it's still being speculated by various outlets that it's Mercedes Moné is expected to go to AEW. Of course, Sean Ross Sapp mentioned, he's mentioned several times on his show and on post shows and everything, that, when he contacted New Japan on why Mercedes was not on Wrestle Kingdom or Battle in the Valley, and they said, basically she's not ready. That implies that she's still healing from her injury, which means that she's not going to be at the Rumble, or she'll probably be at Revolution or something like that. So, um, you have that. You got Camille and everything. So there's a lot of cool things. And also remember that Tony Khan, I believe it was 2 years ago, he trademarked All Elite Women. Does that mean we're going to get a pay-per-view, or does that mean he might start another promotion, just a women's promotion? That's something intriguing. We don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, Camille Brickhouse, most people know her by that name, was backstage at AEW Dynamite. We see where that goes. From one free agent to someone who was in AEW, but now it is pretty much, determined that he is headed to AEW. Fightful Select reports. They had some more details with Andrade, him leaving AEW and WWE. They mentioned that he has an agreement with WWE. It's also mentioned that AEW talent said he wanted to stay, but told wrestlers he was headed back. They also mentioned that Charlotte Flair pushed for Andrade to return to WWE. So that's a big factor. That was no surprise. And, speaking of Charlotte Flair, I hope she recovers from her knee injury. She's posted on social media, man. Those knee injuries are no joke. She is a top-notch performer. Loved her matches and everything. Hopefully she comes back full strength and healthy. Not only in the ring, but just outside of the ring, where she's, able to do daily things, man. There's more important things than wrestling in the ring and everything. But it was also mentioned that Andrade pushed for Ric Flair to be in AEW. So it's a really peculiar situation with Andrade in AEW, with Charlotte wanting to go to WWE, him pushing for Ric Flair to be in AEW, like just a lot of things there. But hopefully this provides clarity that he has an agreement with WWE, so more than likely he's going to be paired back up with Zelina Vega. That is the most logical sense. So it seems like we're gonna see like an NXT WWE version, 2019 version of that NXT WWE on WWE programming in the next couple of months. Should be pretty interesting. Him and Zelina Vega that was a perfect pairing. Also, in other news, you got MLW Reloaded, or actually, yes, you got MLW Reloaded this Saturday at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. You got Satoshi Kojima versus Sami Callihan. Then you got Alex Kane and Matt Riddle versus World Titan Federation. Top superstars. Tom Lawler is the head of that group. It's going to be airing on MLW's YouTube channel, so please check that out. That is going to be airing after AW Collision, which is from 7 to 9 Central Standard Time if you're in Chicago. Last but not least, you got TNA Impact tomorrow. Man, I'm looking forward to it. It is the first show on Access TV under the TNA name. It's interesting because it was Impact Wrestling on Thursdays, and now it's TNA Impact. So it's going back to the old name that started it all back when they were doing the first shows on Fox Sports. So you're going to have Josh Alexander versus Will Ospreay, Zaya Brookside versus Tasha Steelz, X Division Scramble, Kushida, Trey Miguel, Laredo Kid, Mike Bailey, El Hijo del Vikingo, Jake Something, Grizzled Young Vex versus Eric Young and Frankie Kazarian in a tag team match. So check that out. Man, this has been a wonderful night of professional wrestling. Follow City of Wrestling on all social media platforms. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Do all that so you are informed and notified when the City of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on all social media platforms. Folks, that is another episode of City of Wrestling Showtime. Until next time, folks, enjoy wrestling, man. It is getting good, and it's only going to get better. With that, folks,